Hello, my name is Amy. When I started learning English, everything was so confusing, but do you know what helped? An emotional story that I'm going to share with you today. Today, you will learn English through a story about love, letters, and learning. Let's practice useful words and important expressions together. Don't forget to turn on the subtitles and repeat the sentences with me in English. This will improve your pronunciation and confidence. The mysterious attic. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when I decided to tackle the old attic at my grandmother's house. The wooden stairs creaked as I climbed up, and the air was filled with the scent of dust and time. Boxes were stacked everywhere, each one holding memories from the past. As I opened one of the boxes, something caught my eye, a small wooden chest with a rusty lock. I managed to open it, and inside I found a bundle of old letters tied with a faded blue ribbon. The handwriting was elegant, but as I glanced through the first letter, I realized it was written in English. I frowned. This is going to be tough, I thought. My English wasn't great, and some words didn't make sense to me. But the letters seemed so personal and heartfelt. Who wrote them? And to whom? That's when I decided to call Ethan, my best friend and a patient English teacher. Ethan, I need your help, I said over the phone. I've found these old letters, but I can't understand everything. Sounds like an adventure, Ethan replied, his voice cheerful. I'll be there in an hour. While waiting for him, I carefully placed the letters back in the box and wondered about the story they held. Ethan arrived right on time, carrying his usual energy and curiosity. He adjusted his glasses as I handed him the first letter. "This handwriting is beautiful," he said. "Let's see what it says." We sat down at the kitchen table with the letter spread out between us. Ethan began reading it aloud. "Dear Elizabeth, I miss you every day. The days feel long without your smile. I hope this letter finds you well and happy. With love, William." Ethan paused and looked at me. "Okay, let's break this down. Do you know the word miss?" I hesitated. "Kind of. It means not being somewhere." "Close," he said with a smile. "In this case, miss means to feel sad because someone is not with you. Like saying, 'I miss my friend.'" I nodded, repeating, "I miss my friend." "Good. Now, how about with love?" he asked. "That's easy," I said, smiling. "It's a way to end a letter with affection, right?" "Exactly. You're getting it." We continued going through the letter, with Ethan explaining more words like hope and find. As I repeated each word and sentence, I felt more confident. "What do you think about this letter?" Ethan asked. "It's sweet," I said, feeling a mix of curiosity and emotion. "It sounds like William cared about Elizabeth a lot." "Definitely," Ethan agreed, "and there's more where this came from." "Are you ready for the next one?" I nodded eagerly, feeling both excited and a little nervous about what we might discover next. Ethan carefully unfolded the second letter, its edges worn with time. He glanced at me before starting. "This one feels different," he said. "Let's read it." Dear Elizabeth, I haven't heard from you in weeks. I keep wondering if my letters are reaching you. Are you all right? I can't stop thinking about our last day together. Please write back. Yours, William. Ethan leaned back, his expression thoughtful. There's a lot of emotion in this one. Did you notice anything? I shook my head. I understand some words, but not everything. Let's go through it, he said, pointing to the letter. Do you know what haven't heard means? It means, you didn't hear anything, I guessed. Close. It means you haven't received any communication like letters or messages, Ethan explained. Now, how about reach? Reach, like to touch something? Yes, but here it means arrive. William is wondering if his letters are arriving to Elizabeth. I repeated after him. I haven't heard from you. Did my letter reach you? Perfect, Ethan said. And look at the phrase can't stop thinking. It means his thoughts are always about her. I nodded, starting to piece the letter together. William is worried. He doesn't know if Elizabeth got his letters. Exactly, Ethan said, and it shows how much he cared. Imagine writing to someone and never getting an answer. As I stared at the letter, I felt a growing sense of connection to William. It's sad. He must have been so anxious. Ethan smiled gently. That's what makes stories like this special. They let us feel what others felt. We exchanged a look, both of us curious about what might be revealed in the next letter. As Ethan and I sat with the letters, I couldn't help but reflect on how much I was learning, not just about William and Elizabeth, but about the language itself. Ethan picked up the first letter again and smiled. Let's try something new, he said. How do you feel about this story so far? I hesitated. It's sad but beautiful? Exactly. That's a great way to describe it, Ethan encouraged. Let's practice using feelings to describe things. Repeat after me. It's sad but beautiful. I repeated the phrase, making sure to emphasize each word. It's sad but beautiful. Great job. Now let's try another one. How about, it's emotional and interesting? I followed along, carefully mimicking his pronunciation. It's emotional and interesting. Perfect, Ethan said. And here's why this is important. When you talk about something in English, describing your feelings helps make the conversation more personal. I nodded, starting to feel more confident. So, if someone asks me about this story, I can say, it's sad but beautiful. Exactly, Ethan replied, clapping lightly. And you can also add details like, it's about letters and love. We practiced a few more phrases together, each one tied to the story we were uncovering. The more we repeated them, the more natural they felt. Looking at the letters on the table, I smiled. Learning English like this feels easier and kind of fun. Ethan grinned. That's the idea. Stories aren't just entertaining, they're a great way to learn and connect. As I thought about his words, I realized I was no longer just reading William's letters. I was starting to see English as a way to bring stories to life. After a short break, Ethan picked up a letter that looked different from the others. The edges were torn, and the handwriting seemed shakier. "This one looks like it's been through a lot," he said. As he unfolded it, we noticed something peculiar. It wasn't written by William. "This letter is from Elizabeth," Ethan said, surprised. He began reading aloud. "Dear William, I wanted to write to you, but I was afraid that you wouldn't forgive me for what happened. I hope you know that I still think about you every day. Please believe me when I say you've always been in my heart." Ethan looked up at me. "This changes everything." "What do you think?" I paused, processing the emotions in Elizabeth's words. She was afraid. She didn't know how to say what she felt. "Exactly," Ethan said. "And there are some good phrases here to learn. For example, I wanted to write to you. It shows something she planned or thought about doing in the past." I repeated after him, "I wanted to write to you." "Perfect. Now, what about I was afraid?" "It means she felt scared." I tried it out. "I was afraid." "Great," Ethan said. "And finally, the phrase 'you've always been in my heart.' It's a poetic way to say, I've always cared about you." I smiled, repeating softly, "You've always been in my heart." As we sat quietly for a moment, I couldn't help but feel the weight of Elizabeth's words. She must have cared about him so much, but she didn't know how to say it, I said. Ethan nodded. "It's a reminder that communication is powerful, even when it feels difficult. That's why learning a language like English can open so many doors. It helps us express ourselves." With that thought, we placed the letter back in the box and prepared to uncover the final piece of their story. The room felt quiet as Ethan and I prepared to read the last letter. It was the smallest one in the bundle, and the paper was yellowed and fragile. As Ethan unfolded it, he gave me an encouraging look. "This is it," he said. "The final piece of the puzzle." He began reading aloud. "Dear William, I don't know if you will ever read this, but I want you to know the truth. I never stopped caring for you. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing, so I said nothing at all. I hope you can forgive me and remember me as someone who loved you deeply. Yours always, Elizabeth." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The weight of Elizabeth's regret hung in the air. She loved him, but she never told him in time, I said softly, my voice filled with emotion. Ethan nodded. "It's a powerful reminder, isn't it? Even if we're not perfect, trying to communicate is better than saying nothing." He turned to me with a gentle smile. "What do you think this story teaches us?" I thought for a moment before answering. "It teaches us to be brave. Even if our words aren't perfect, it's important to try. Just like I'm trying to learn English." Ethan beamed. "Exactly, and you're doing great." Let's look at some key phrases from this letter. First, "I never stopped caring for you." This means someone's feelings remain strong, even over time. I repeated after him, "I never stopped caring for you." Good. Now, how about "I was afraid of saying the wrong thing"? It shows her fear of making mistakes. I tried again. I was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Perfect, Ethan said. And lastly, remember me as someone who loved you deeply. It's a way of asking someone to think about you in a kind and loving way. I repeated softly, remember me as someone who loved you deeply. As we placed the last letter back in the box, I felt a mix of sadness and inspiration. William and Elizabeth's story might have been filled with missed opportunities, but it also carried a timeless lesson. This has been more than just learning English, I said. It's been about understanding emotions and stories. Ethan smiled warmly. And that's the best way to learn, by connecting with something real. As I looked at the box of letters one last time, I felt grateful not just for the story I had uncovered, but for the journey it had taken me on. Today, you learned how to ask and explain English words through an exciting story. This is an important step towards understanding new ideas. Remember, learning a new language is like deciphering letters from the past. Each word you understand reveals a new world. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to the channel and come back for more stories that make learning English fun. Until next time.